My name's Simon.
My name's Steve.
And we're here at the Bike Social offices. And Steve, we need to talk about Fireblades.
Yes, yes we do. Last week, Honda celebrated 25 years of Fireblade. In 2017, 1 in 3 sports bikes sold this year has been a Fireblade. They told us.
1 in 3?
1 in 3 sports bikes.
Okay.
Shame then really that the rest of 2017 hasn't been as good a year for the Blade.
You could say that. It's had a few problems.
Been a few well-reported problems. Problems with the race bikes, which in fairness had nothing to do with road bikes really. And then rumours of problems with the road bike, which have just sort of blighted what should have been a really great year for the Blade. And we think we found the answer to this. But first, I think let's just recap the story so far. I think just for those who haven't followed it all.
Yep.
New Blade was launched earlier on this year, Portimao racetrack. Everybody loved it, rave reviews. Freddie Spencer was there, John McGuinness was there. Obviously, they're Honda employees, but they loved it. We all loved it.
There wasn't a bad word from the launch, was there really? I think there was a few people chuntering about the physical size of the bike, but there was certainly nothing that indicated the storm that was to come. No, not at all.
And then in March, I think it was, Honda announced that Guy Martin was going to partner John McGuinness for the TT this year. Fantastic announcement. I'm guessing most of those blades that were sold were probably sold the week after.
They probably were.
You know, it's the absolute dream team. What followed, not quite so much of a dream. At the Northwest in May, McGuinness had a crash in practice, busted his leg really badly, put him out the TT. No one's really sure what happened. There were sort of rumours flying around about throttles and all sorts of things. And then at TT proper in June, Guy Martin fell off in the first lap of the
I think it pretty much was, yeah.
And again, talk of false neutrals and problems with the bike. Guy looked visibly shaken after it.
Outstanding interview. He described it as a Jonah bike, and which you would after getting off it at 140 miles an hour at the TT, and given everything else that had gone on. Yeah,
and made the decision that he didn't want to race in the senior. At the same sort of time that happened, the press bikes were starting to go out, test bikes were going, and some magazines, some journalists gave the New Blade rave reviews. Others weren't so sure. You were one of them. Do you want to explain what you found?
I was. Well, initially there were two breeds of blade. There's the SP and there's the standard base model. And I had the base model, which was from Ride magazine. It was like a long-term test bike, and my initial impressions, and they were initial. It was the first time I rode the bike. I felt that it simply didn't respond on the throttle the way I wanted it to. It felt random. So I wasn't riding particularly hard. I was just kind of riding a normal sort of blundery 80 mile an hour, barreling into corners, but not firing it in, just rolling the bike in. And it felt like you'd roll off the throttle and the bike would go into the corner, and then as you tried to get back on the gas to find that point where it begins to pick the bike up and steady it and get a bit of drive, every single time I went for that part of throttle, it wasn't where I thought it was going to be. So I've ridden bikes before where they've been snatchy and or that have had some sort of gap between where you roll the throttle and then it comes in. But this appeared to be random. It seemed to be sort of making it up as it went along. One corner would be, okay, that's the point where the throttle bites. That's the point where the engine picks up. Okay, I'll remember that. And the next time I come out, I'll go to that point. And you'll find yourself running wide out of the corner because you were giving it too much. And you were like, the bike's got a mind of its own. And it was quite a subtle thing as well. It wasn't like a really obvious problem. So I kind of half suspected that it wasn't something that everybody would find. And it wasn't even about whether they were really fast or really not fast. It was just almost like a riding style thing. But some people like brake levers to be a long span away. And some people like brake levers to be really close. And it was kind of almost like, I could imagine some people who like their levers to be a long way away, not kind of noticing that this thing's got what I would consider a problem. But it didn't feel right to me. And I was quite vocal, I think, in being critical of the bike. I couldn't understand how some of the journalists had not picked this up at the launch, and I couldn't understand how some of the magazines and newspapers had made the bike the winner of their group tests. Because on the basis of what I was riding, it didn't feel like that at all. Yeah,
me too. And it's weird because I had a conversation with you and I read the same things, and I am a nosy bugger. I'm not the same kind of rider as you. I'm probably 10, 20% slower than you are. I ride in a very different way, but I want to know what was going on. It just seemed like I couldn't remember the last time we had a situation like this.
Yeah.
So Bike Social has got a long-term Fireblade SP on loan from Honda, and I thought, I'm just going to go do some miles on this, and I'm going to see if I can find out what the issue is. Our bike's completely standard. The only change it had is it's had some new tyres fitted because we'd been on a track test with it earlier on in our tenure with it. So we'd swapped the original tyres for Dunlop Sport Smart
2 Max.
Yeah, Sport Smart 2 Max.
Yeah, complicated name. Let's make it easy for people.
Yeah, so I went out on this and I spent a couple of days just trying to make it misbehave. And I'd ride it like I'd normally ride it, no problem. I'd ride it really kind of clumsily and messily and just whacking the throttle out in the middle of the corners, and it didn't do anything untoward. It just rode. In fact, it's the opposite. Most £20,000 homologation special super duper sports bikes, you expect them to feel badly, you expect them to be uncomfortable, you expect the suspension to be harsh. This thing was just such a lovely package. I qualify that by saying I don't ride a lot of sports bikes these days. I haven't ridden the other sports bikes of 2017. But I know what a modern sports bike feels like. I've ridden sports bikes over the years. I couldn't do a group test on one. I couldn't tell you which one to go and buy now. But I loved it. I thought it was absolutely great. So I wrote a report on Bike Social. We put it up there, as is the way these days. Social media filled up with lots of people saying, Honda hurt Guy Martin. We don't like this. There's something wrong with this bike. You can't do this. These bikes are terrible. And I was reading these comments thinking, you can't have ridden this bike. So I just put something on there and said, I don't know how many of you have ridden this bike, but if you haven't ridden it and you'd like the opportunity to, we'll book Bruntingthorpe Proving Ground in Leicestershire. We'll take our bike there. Come along, have a go. Tell us what you think. And just to make that even more interesting, I thought the best person to do that feature would be Simon. So he did. What did they find?
So we all turned up at Bruntingthorpe. Now, perhaps the most interesting thing for me was that that out of the Facebook furore, I think we actually were meant to get 5 people who agreed to turn up, and only 4 actually showed up, which is bizarre when you think, here's a free motorbike, a litre sports bike you can come and ride round Bruntingthorpe, and nobody turns up. No. What is wrong with you people?
We invite the whole of the internet.
Exactly.
And it turns out the internet is 4
people. Yeah. So basically, but these guys were quite well chosen because they came from all kinds of different biking backgrounds. They'd all ridden sports bikes in the past. I think one guy had actually owned 3 previous models of Fireblade, and one guy owned a 2015 or 2016 model.
Yeah, 2015.
So it's quite an interesting mix, and every single one of them rode the Bike Social SP and had no problems at all with throttle control. We were quite specific with people saying if you could focus on that connection between throttle and disregard the fact that it's really fast and that it's got really great handling and the suspension, the semi-active suspension is really good. Try and kind of ignore that and just think about how easy it is to roll the bike on and off the throttle. And there's a few sections, it's not all flat out at Bruntingthorpe, there are a few sort of infield sections where that kind of problem might show up. And nobody found a problem at all. It was all sort of, no, this bike is amazing, I had no trouble controlling it. Amidst the euphoria of actually riding this bike around Brunters.
Yeah, so for me, in a way, that was it. That was, here's a bike that hasn't got a problem, I can't find a problem. That's it for me.
For me, it wasn't quite over because while I was riding the Bike Social SP around Bruntingthorpe, I was quietly having a little battle inside myself because it didn't feel as bad as my standard bike that I was riding for a Ride magazine. And I couldn't quite work out why. And it was one of those things where you question yourself and you think, is my judgment awry? Have I caused a great fuss over nothing at all and there's nothing wrong with this bike? And then I got back on my base bike and went, no, hang on, this is still wrong. So I began to think perhaps there was a difference between the SP and the base bike. There shouldn't be. The engines are supposed to be identical. The noughts and ones in the ECU are supposed to be identical. It's just that one bike's got semi-active suspension and it's got a quick shifter and an auto blipper and a few other bits and bobs. But apart from that, they're pretty much the same. And then the final piece of the jigsaw for me was when I rode a third Fireblade. How many can you ride in a lifetime? And a colleague who I was riding it with at the time for a different magazine had also ridden some other blades, and we both looked at each other and were really confused because this bike felt okay too. So we're thinking, hang on, that other bike we rode felt awful, and then there's this Bike Social bike that felt really good, and then there's this third bike that kind of feels in between the two. And we began to suspect that one of the biggest differences between all 3 bikes is the tyres. So the base bike for Ride Magazine is on Dunlop D214s, which are good, solid, sturdy, reliable tyres, but they're not the most inspiring things in the world. Your SP, because you'd changed the tyres, was on the Sport Smart 2 Max. And the third bike that we were riding was on Bridgestone S21s, which kind of sit a little bit in between. And then also I'd ridden the Bike Social Blade that was fitted later with Michelin Power RS tyres, which are even stickier. And that was absolutely flawless. I rode that at Mallory, and it was perfect, absolutely perfect. So we've got this situation where I've ridden 4 different blades, and they've been on 4 different sets of tyres, and the one that was the worst was on the worst tyres, and the one that was best was on the best, and that they fell into that pattern. So I began to think, maybe tyres are something to do with this problem. And it's still a theory because I haven't had a chance to actually investigate it, but it kind of, the evidence fits together into this perfect theory that if you put the new Fireblade with its really, really clever electronics on, say, a mid-traction control setting, so normally if you ride around and you say, I want it on traction control position 5, or torque control, I think they call it, and you ride around with it in its mid-setting, and you have it on not very good tyres, it kind of knows that the tyres aren't very good, and it tries to manage your throttle input to allow you to survive and ride on these potentially not very good tyres that might be overwhelmed. So it's almost like if you can imagine taking an ordinary litre sports bike and putting it in rain mode and riding it around in the dry, you're going to be going, oh, I'm not getting the throttle I want, it's not doing what I want. Except with the Blade, it wasn't just not the right amount of power, it was kind of like varying what it was giving you, but as it was working it out in real time. You'd open the throttle and the thing would be going, don't like those Dunlops, so you haven't got as much grip. There's a little bit too much spin differential between the rear and the front, you know, or change in acceleration or whatever it is that it's measuring, and the lean angle at the same time. I'm not going to give you what you want. And then when you put it on really good tyres, it goes, the ECU goes, oh great, I've got grip. Wherever you want, you can have it. And suddenly it feels like a normal motorbike.
And this was sort of backed up, wasn't it? Because we spoke to someone who instructs at Ron Haslam Race School, and Ron Haslam at their school they use they use less grippy tyres, don't they? Because they want the tyres to last a long time. Otherwise, at Ron Haslam school they'd be getting through tyres every day. Yeah. And in order, they'd worked out, I think, that in order to allow for these tyres and get the best out of the bikes, they'd had to change the traction control settings from what the standard settings were. Is that right? Yeah,
something like that, yeah. Because normally with traction control, you think, well, okay, for someone who's not particularly experienced or is a bit cautious or doesn't really want the full beans, you'll dial it back a bit. And that'll be all right, because then they've got a bit of a safety net. And it won't intervene, it won't intrude, unless they do something wrong, and then it's a safety net that's there to catch them early, if you like. Whereas the Blade doesn't work like that, I don't think. Instead, if you ride around with it on traction control setting 5, the thing was interfering, not in a hesitant stop-start kind of way. It's not cutting the fueling, or it's just retarding the ignition, maybe just not opening the throttle valves as far as you want them open. But crucially, I think the important thing is, I don't think it's opening them when you want them open either. That's the bit that makes the difference. Even if it just gave you something, you know, that was consistent.
And I guess the thing is now that modern traction control systems aren't just about cutting ignition either. The way the traction control works is just, it's so sophisticated, isn't it? Parameters it changes.
Absolutely. There's slide control and torque control and all kinds of different names for it. But I mean, we're not talking about the kind of slide control where you'll see a little orange light flickering on the dash as you go sideways by about 2 inches, but it feels like 5 feet. Not that kind of traction control. This is where you open the throttle and the bike doesn't do it won't let you do the things that it thinks you shouldn't be doing, if that makes any sense. And I think all along we've said, just to reiterate the point, that the racing stuff with John McGuinness with the throttle sticking open, whether it's a mechanical thing or a noughts and ones thing, and Guy Martin's gearbox issues, which he kind of was pointing a finger at the auto blipper, which kind of I think John was pointing a finger at the auto blipper as well. As far as we know, it's a different gearbox, it's a different set of electronics. A race bike is so stripped back, there's very little of the road bike on it. And even when I spoke to John McGuinness for Bike Social, he said that the road bike and the race bike problems are entirely disconnected. So I think, you can't connect the two. And also, we wanted to make the point that the bike's never been dangerous. You can ride it on, you can put tyres made of teak and it won't be dangerous. It's not going to have you off. It's not going to cause you an accident. Yeah. So it's just, you could even say it's just motorcycle journalists being really fussy. I mean, you know, you could put it down to that.
Yeah, but the interesting point for me about all of this was that I was riding this bike and finding nothing wrong with it. But I've known you long enough and ridden with you long enough that, you know, you're not hysterical. You're not one of these people that goes off on one. If I can trust it. If Simon Hargreaves says there's something wrong with this bike, or there's something I'm not happy with this bike, or there's something I want to investigate with this bike, then there's probably something there that's worth investigating. The interesting thing for me out of this is that it goes on. It suggests how the challenges are now in the tyre companies arena. Really, you know, how as a tyre company, how do you make tyres that will do what these bikes want them to do? Because we all want, you know, as customers, we want the grippiest tyre that lasts the longest. You know, the tyre manufacturers are doing their damnedest to give us that. But you know, how closely do they have to work with the manufacturers to do this?
Yeah. And it also says that when a manufacturer chooses to release a litre sports bike on anything less than a premium sports tyre, it's kind of almost a false economy. You know, the amount of money that Honda may have saved by putting them on DT1.4s, they probably lost by not selling enough bikes. Maybe they sold 2 out of 3 would have been Fireblades, but for that. Yeah. So I think there is an element and that's not new. I mean, you know, I'm thinking back to the early 90s when premium sports bikes would come on touring tyres. Yeah. But as you know, back then, all you had was they felt a bit wooden and there wasn't much grip. It wasn't like they suddenly carburetted differently or behaved differently.
Yeah, much more simple.
But yeah, it's much more sophisticated now. And you know, and you have to feel a little bit of Honda as well, because that's the first time I think that this problem has been brought up in this way. So
yeah, it could be that their system is actually more sophisticated than some of the other systems in the way it's restricted.
Yeah.
And it's highlighted this problem differently.
I mean, you know, I was tempted to say it was too clever for its own good, but that's not true either, because you can't be too clever when you're a 190 horsepower sports bike. You can be as clever as you like. I really appreciate that.
Is the next part of this then? Do we do a tyre test using an even broader range of tyres?
I think that's got to be how we finally nail this theory and make it a fact. Yeah. Or find out that it wasn't true and that we've got to start looking somewhere else. Or maybe I did make the whole thing up. I don't know. Yeah, it would be fascinating to take the blade out and try it on really bad tyres and just see how it feels, and then put it on really good tyres. I think maybe we'd need a sort of a riding dummy, someone who's never actually ridden one of these bikes to be a blank slate, because I'd obviously come at it with my preconceptions, proving myself right. And so, but yeah, that's definitely the next thing we need to do. So yeah, I guess keep your eyes on Bike Social and we'll give you more information as we find out. So anyway, I was shopping at Lidl the other day, and have you seen the offer they've got on dog food? It's incredible. No. I'm not sure where it comes from.